Who wants a pot of coffee? I just made coffee. You want a cup of coffee? Sure, there you go. Who wants coffee? Anybody else want coffee? Who wants coffee?
And now it's time for the man with the caffeine, the new tropics for the brain. It's Coffee with Mike. Hang in, hang tight, grab your cup, and let's get this thing started.
Everybody, welcome back to Java Chat, Coffee with Mike. Hanging out with. If you don't recognize this person, then you haven't been watching films. This is Jenny Paul. Jenny, thank you so much for joining us here on Java Chat. It's an honor and a pleasure, and I'm really looking forward to hanging out with you.
Me too. Thank you so much for having me.
What we're going to talk about the graphic that she has there in a little while, but first, as everybody knows, we like to figure out who are we actually talking to here. So if you would give us your story. Where are you from? Who are you? Bring us up to date to where you're at today.
So my name is Jenny. I am a New Yorker for about 15 years now. I grew up in Texas. Yeah, Manhattan, Harlem.
Manhattan. All right, cool.
Exactly. So I grew up in Texas, in Dallas, and then I went to school in Boston, and then ended up here. Was pre-med, decided at some point that wasn't my path, and ended up moving to New York to pursue acting. So that was sort of how I ended up here.
Time out. I forgot to warn you, I'm a rabbit. And then see a rabbit hole, I will run down it. You decided from pre-med to acting.
Yeah.
All right, where?
Yeah, right.
How did that play out?
So my parents were both doctors, and specifically my dad was sort of the guy, the doctor that took care of everybody, took care of the whole neighborhood. Yeah. And I sort of aspired to do that without fully realizing that wasn't necessarily about being a doctor. Yeah. So, I was like, okay, I want to do like my dad did, and, be the person that can, come up with something that's really, that's good for everybody, that can take care of all of her friends and family and her community, and be that sort of extroverted social person that he was, that I was finding myself to be at some point, when I started figuring out myself. Right. So I went to Brandeis for pre-med, and because it was a top 10 pre-med school, and they they pretty much said if you graduate in the top,
you end up getting a residency pretty quick. It's fast. Yeah, they're good. Yeah.
So I pursued that specifically, and I looked, because I had a hobby of acting and singing to some degree, less than acting, but in high school, I decided to make sure that the school that I picked for pre-med also had a theater program. Nice. And after school activities that I could do all of that. So my second year in organic chemistry, I called my dad, and I was doing well because I'm a science kid and I come from science people. And I called him and I said, I'm just abjectly miserable. This sucks. And I said to my dad, I was like, how did you do this for 12 years? And he said, I liked it.
Yeah. I'm trying to imagine your dad on the other side of the phone going, oh no.
Yeah. He was like, he liked the science in addition to the people. Sure. My mom's pretty introverted, so she wasn't ever really into the people to begin with. Right. But so I kind of went, oh, okay. Cue existential crisis. Yeah. And then, another couple of semesters of being a little lost in space, and then sort of found myself getting a theater major because I had been taking theater classes for fun on the side, and everything else was pre-med. So that is how that happened. And then
so that shift. Yeah. What did that do for you, man?
Oh, I think it really, kind of effed with me, because I really came from a place of being on a trajectory to do something that was a very secure job choice. Oh yeah. It was a very, respected job choice. It was something that I knew I could handle if I got through it, and expected to like, and then I really didn't. And it wasn't just organic chemistry. I fought my way through the first year too. I dragged my lab partner along the whole year. I went through every bad version of what that was. I had a professor that was kind of inappropriate and had to like deal with that. And, and I just went through everything that you could think could possibly happen in one fell swoop and went, okay. I think I've still got a little, I call PTS. I still have a little PTS about that.
I can imagine you might have a little residual on that one. Oh my God.
Oh, I could have done that. Okay. And I could have, I just would have not been happy. And I didn't think I thought that was enough to say, okay, enough.
Yeah. No, I mean, this is something that I get with a lot of my guests, is that they get on a path and then all of a sudden they realize, yeah, no, this isn't for me. And they find all of a sudden like what you found, because I mean, obviously, if people look at your creds, you've been acting, you've been performing. I mean, what are some of the things that you've done so far?
So some of my favorite things have been in New York theater and sort of like the off-Broadway scene.
Those are fun.
So yeah, a lot of good stuff. I did a regional production of Proof, which is a play people know, and just really meaty, substantive stuff. And then, on the kind of lighter side, some musical theater, some original musicals here, and then more recently TV and film. And I did Jessica Jones with Marvel for an episode in season 2. And I think my biggest gig, even probably to date, including the one that I'm doing right now, was I had a regular role in the Looming Tower with Jeff Daniels and Pierce Sarsgaard, and that was pretty epic. And also really appreciated that I was working on my first major job.
Yeah.
With on something that was substantive and meant something, rather than just like, I gotta, roll on a TV show that like, that's fun. Yeah. Right. So like, I love sitcoms and I do them all the time, but this one really felt substantive, and, going to work each day felt like doing something sort of.
You felt like you were actually going to work.
Yeah.
And
that too, for an actor, that's a big deal to feel like I'm actually going to work.
That's a huge deal.
That's a big deal.
Yeah,
even on huge shows, you get 1-2 days if you've got a guest or a cameo or a co-star is what they're called. And so you're there for a day and you're like, hey, bye, but this was really a job, and that was amazing.
That's awesome. I have another friend who got started late. I mean, he's my age. His birthday is a couple days before mine, which is why we know each other. And he's been guesting on one of the Chicago line of shows. And it's built up to a point now where he's starting to get more traction and doing stuff. And I'm like, bro, go crush it if that's what you want to do. And he's an airline mechanic.
That's amazing.
Right?
I love that.
And he enjoys his work, don't get me wrong, but he loves doing that. And it's really, I love seeing and hearing what you're saying. There's actual work involved. Not that you don't enjoy all the other things that you've done, but this is like, wow, I can get up and I can go to work.
Yeah. I mean, it was pretty amazing. And, working on something that it was the first kind of major 9/11 thing that was made, and I remember, I was old enough to remember, and thinking that, this was some subject matter that like it was overdue, although for some people too soon. And becoming a New York transplant, it felt like a story that I was honored to be able to help tell.
Yeah, that's cool. On your acting, when you did all of the things, the off-Broadway stuff, or I don't think people understand how much work goes into that kind of acting, because it's not like a TV show where you get a break.
Right.
It's like the next act is coming. Do you remember your lines? The next piece is coming. How do you feel? What are you? Can you explain to people what kind of? I mean, it's two different styles of work.
I mean, so they're totally different, and they, although have a similar skill set, obviously. You're an actor. You're an actor. I think most of us that came at least through, a college or university system are trained in theater, not in television.
Yeah.
And the training, and I think rightfully so, because what theater does for people that haven't done it in high school or anything else is it not only kind of gives you that sense of community that, that is sort of epic to that sort of experience of, okay, you're in a scene with somebody else, you've done your work, you've done all of your backstory, and
Yep.
you're figuring out what's happening where, and what the intentions are, and what the stakes are, and how to do that for that particular piece. But then you're riding the wave of energy with the team, so it's kind of like playing a really good game of maybe hockey or basketball. I hesitate with basketball because I know sometimes you can have just a star player and the star player can just win. But if you think about basketball in terms of like the Golden State Warriors rather than like LeBron. So,
Right.
so a great theater experience as an actor and is part of a team that is just epic, and they come together and they do something amazing. And every night you come and you bring in, and everybody has their own responsibilities to bring a certain amount of energy and to actually be in tune to what that energy is, so that you're playing things moment to moment. So it doesn't make any sense if one night you scream something, if the person before you didn't push you to scream something. So you work together as a team in rehearsal to get to that point where you're at least at a level where everything is sort of generally matching, but then you're listening within the microcosm of it for that night's performance, and
Okay.
you're present with it. And that's another thing that's super unique to a theater experience,
Yeah.
is that presence is kind of underrated in almost everything, because you can be doing three things at once. I could be talking to you with my water bottle and my cell phone and my whatever. But this sport fully requires you to be in the zone the same way basketball would, or
Yep.
playing an instrument, or being part of an orchestra. So
Yep.
so that to me is what's interesting about theater. And you have the benefit of multiple rehearsals to get the lines, to get the blocking, to get the, that you're working as a group the same way you'll be practicing as a team.
The comedic stuff is always is my favorite, because then you also happen to talk about timing.
Yes, absolutely. And in a drama, I don't want to say it's, go ahead.
There's timing there too. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I don't want to say there's no timing, but think about it. I don't know if you speak music, so I can use the reference, but
you're a veteran.
Oh, perfect. Okay. So to me, a drama is in 4/4.
Yep.
There's rhythm, it's happening at a pace, and there are certain moments that push and pull, and they're designed by the director and the collaboration with the director and the actors to create a certain tension and a certain rhythm. Yep. And it can be a real slow 4/4, or it can be a quicker 4/4. Comedy is more of like a waltz. So it's in 3/4.
I love it. You're totally in there. That's perfect. Yes. Totally.
So it's already unique because most things are in 4/4. So it's already unique. And then what happens is you got bum, 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 bum.
Yeah.
And so it's this thing of it's hard to verbalize what that is if you don't feel music, or if this is not your language, but the timing matters significantly more. So in my experience, creating good comedy, especially in an ensemble, is quite a bit harder because you already have to have hired or onboarded multiple people that already inherently hear what that comedy is supposed to do and sound like. And then on top of that, you add character choices and goofball stuff. And, like, is my character, really brash and mean, or is my character, really soft and quiet, like whatever that is, those are things that are stacked on top of the fundamental rhythm of how it's going.
So just to kind of add on to that, for those who don't understand what we're talking about time signatures, key signatures, what they call in music. And a 4/4 time is just a 1 2 3 4 1 2 3 4. And when she said you go to a 3/4 time, it's 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2 3, which is that little cut in the midst of the timing that goes, hold on a second, that was an accent. What does that accent mean? If you listen to, God, what is the guy's name? He's a conductor and a violinist. He's always playing in Austria. But if you listen to the waltzes that he plays, he accentuates those. His whole deal. Da, 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 da. I mean, it really punches. And what she's saying here is that's comedic timing. It's the punch at the odd time that gets everybody to go, hold on a second.
Right. That breaks you out of your comfort zone.
Yep.
In an ideally funny way, and not just awkward way, but awkward can be funny too.
Oh yeah.
That breaks you out of the expectation of what's going to happen. And even though you kind of know it's going to happen that way, it's still, our brains are still wired to short circuit and go, okay.
Yep.
So it's a unique part of the whole thing. And I find that, you know, the people that really, and I think there is a correlation between people that are musical and people that are comedic, because there's a sense of rhythm there.
Yes, there is.
That is very specific. And
we have a couple of friends that are comedians, and boy, let me tell you, when it comes to music, they're in there.
Yep.
So from all of that, what are you doing like right now?
Right now.
Yeah.
I think in my world, you know, I'm working on a comedy. And so, you know, I think about this thing all this time is that, and that's something that I actually really love to do, is as much as I love the reverence of, you know, something like a looming tower and all of that. I think especially now, COVID, with everything going on, there is a certain generosity to doing comedy that I think, you know, people put their own, you know, BS aside and their own, you know, oh, I'm embarrassed about this or whatever.
Right. To
just do something that like is purely meant for the entertainment value and the smile factor of the other person. That's awesome. And I think there's something super generous about that. Now, of course, there are, you know, extremes of that where people are very self-indulgent, and on the other side where people are really trying hard, but they're just, this is not their thing or whatever. But I think in general, I think it's one of the most uniquely generous things you can do as a performer, is if you have a knack for it in any kind of way, is to make people smile.
I'm glad you said that, because bringing a smile to somebody through laughter, whether you are a professional or not, lends back to that whole thing that you just said about being generous. Being able to walk into a room and do a command performance with a stupid joke that gets everybody to take a break from the seriousness, considering everything that you just said. There's a lot of drama. So doing what you do is absolutely amazing, and thank you for doing that. It's very much needed.
Well, I am thrilled to, because for all of the good and the bad reasons, you know, it's also the most fun, in my opinion. I mean,
I would bet a sitcom I've never worked on. I've done some film stuff, but you know, as extra and all that, but still, I mean, to be able to like, there's readings and then there's actual playing.
Right. Right.
And
I mean, you know, what more fun to go to work and play, you know, and
who doesn't want that job, right?
And know that your playing is making other people happy. You know, it's there's really nothing better than that, in my opinion. And you know, I grew up with Nick at Night being sort of my focus, so I've always been a little bit extra in regard to things like sitcoms and whatnot.
That just makes it that much more interesting. I'm gonna have to go watch now. I don't watch a lot of TV, but I'll tell you what, after hearing that, I'm gonna have to go watch now.
I mean, you know, and the other part of it is that in my particular situation, and everybody comes in it from a different angle, but you'll see that if you start paying attention to who plays the straight man in a comedy, you'll see that there's a lot of dramatic comedic crossover where some of the character, you know, some of the further reaches of that don't necessarily cross over as well. There's comedians and people that are funny, and then there's, you know, dramatic actors. You see somebody like Eric McCormick from Will and Grace, who I think is a perfect example. He was the railroad tracks of Will and Grace.
Yes, he was.
When you think of Will and Grace, you're probably not thinking of Eric McCormick, probably not, but he also was able to hold his own dramatic show, you know, a year after the first round of Will and Grace, and he's an amazing actor. And you look at, you know, other shows that have happened, Dick Van Dyke, who's just incredible. And Lucy is not the railroad tracks of her show, Ricky is. Yep. But these people that can can, be the butt of every joke and be, hang on to that acting prowess and really ground the show in some sort of reality so that all the other goofballs can sort of satellite and do what they do.
Exactly.
I have a personal liking for that because that is kind of what I do best, but also because, because I think that there's a certain amount of craft that has to go into being able to do both of those things.
Oh yeah. One of the best, I'm a little older. I'm sure you'll recognize the name, but Will Hardy. Stan Laurel, Will Hardy.
Yep. Sure.
So they actually did an episode where I think it was Laurel. Who was the skinny one? I can't remember which one was which.
I think Laurel was the skinny one. I think, but it's been a long time.
It's been a long time for me too, but I do remember seeing this in a documentary that Stan Laurel, they did an episode where he got hit in the head, had amnesia, and became this proper gentleman. And he completely, like, everybody's mind was blown at how excellent an actor he was as a dramatic / comedic character, because he got hit in the head. And
right.
Hardy didn't know how to deal with it. I mean, in the episode, Hardy was trying to just deal with it, and the antics and the hilarity that was around it was awesome. But he showed his true brilliance as, I'm not just this guy, I can actually act. And to have that kind of facet in your world, invaluable.
I think so.
Yeah, invaluable.
When I see somebody that has the chops to be able to do all of that, I'm all over that. I'm one of those people. If I find somebody I love, I'll watch everything they ever made. Oh, you're a person. You must have a career. Oh, you find something on Netflix. Let me go back. Let me figure out what else I can watch.
Yeah,
but
you can pick out things too. You pick up tips and tricks from their styles of acting as well. I mean,
absolutely.
There's a whole ton.
I'm equally attracted to the people, watching the people that aren't anything like me that I am, that are, because, I'm fascinated. What about their scenario? Like I watched the one that's trending on Netflix right now with Rosamund Pike and Diane West. I'll have to think of what the name was. I watched it last night. And Rosamund Pike, who also did Gone Girl, is the consummate sort of sociopath, as it were, in these movies, and couldn't be more different from me. And I'm excited to watch that because she holds all this external power that is very commanding and specific and smart, and all the same, can play these characters that are complete, terrible people. And buy it. And like, I'm assuming she's not a terrible person, but like, I buy it. I'm sure she's lovely.
It's so funny that because in Hawaii we get a lot of celebrities that have passed through, and we've met a lot of them, and the characters that they play, especially the bad guys, nothing like that. One of the best ones we got to hang out with, and this is from the wrestling world, Jimmy Hart, the Mouth of the South, the big wrestling manager. Everybody used to hate him. I mean, like, badly. Like, he was the big jerk that everybody just wanted to see get hammered. And one of my buddies approached him once and said, "Hey, you know what? I want to thank you for all your entertainment. I got to tell you, I got to be honest, there's been quite a few times where I really wish people would just put their fist through your mouth." And he looked at him, he goes, "Bruh, that is the biggest compliment you could possibly give me. Thank you." And because I mean, they're entertainers.
Yeah.
Their job as a heel to make people hate them.
Yes, my husband is very much into wrestling, so I
He'll appreciate that. Jimmy's amazing. He's one of the coolest dudes you'll ever meet.
That's so cool. I'll tell him. He'll be excited about that. I kind of know the gist of the current ones, and maybe like the last few years, because we've only been married for a couple of years. But yeah, the concept of the baby face and the heel was so resonant to me when I learned, and I was like, oh yeah, I'm a baby face. That makes sense. That makes sense. Okay.
It's just a lot easier to kind of separate the two. I'm either here or I'm here. They can make it so, it's interesting. They can make it so divergent that you either really are a heel, and there's nothing else in there but that, or you really are a baby face, and that's what you are. there doesn't seem to be an in-between in that world. Whereas in the acting world, you have the, you know, 3, 4.
Yeah, I mean, in my world, I would say, if you were to cast somebody like me as a bad guy, I've done it. You're really asking for like a mind blow, because the way that somebody like me comes off, even doing something marginally not copacetic, is almost sociopathic in nature, because people inherently mentally understand the person that they're seeing, and they're trying to contrast it and deal with it with the character and the voice and the and the dialogue that they're hearing. So people inherently have a sense of who that person is, or a judgment about them, or whatever that is. And if they're at odds with each other, it really messes with people. So I always say, like, if you want like a terrible bad guy, you go with the baby face. But if you want somebody who, like, you want to have some empathy for, you don't. You go with the heel character, or in my world, the person with the external, this external power is.
Here in my mind is one of the most shocking examples of a contradiction to that point, when Robin Williams played a serial killer.
Exactly.
That was the most, he's brilliant. We knew that. But for him to have played that role as well as he did, I questioned life after watching that movie.
There it is. Yeah.
I was just like,
my whole point, the biggest baby face there ever was.
A man who understands quantum physics and can act like that. I mean, he did other good stuff too. Good Will Hunting and what was it? The Dead Poets Society. Great dramatics. When he did that one, I was just like,
right.
Wait a minute.
You just gotta like rethink everything.
Yeah, it's like you can't.
Right. You can't. Your brain can't do it.
Nope. There's no connection.
Right, which makes it that much more. If the person is good, if they're terrible, they're terrible. But if the person is good, it makes it that much more inconceivable and mind messing with.
And that which just lends to their actual expertise and professionalism in acting, when they can, because that's the whole point. Being able to pull out emotions and being able to get people to think.
Right.
Cool. We're gonna take a short 30-second break. Wow, we've been rolling. We're gonna take a short 30-second break. We'll come back, talk a little bit about what inspires Jenny, what gets her up in the morning, and maybe some of the influences that she's had in her life. And we're back here, Java Chat. We're here with Jenny Paul. We're sitting here laughing on the breaks, geez. Second section, we always like to talk about what inspires and who were some of the people that influenced you. What were some of the books or articles or things that may have either kept you going or picked you up or got you to see things clearer. So what are some of the things that motivated you once you started getting into the know that this passion was an actual reality?
I think my first major mentor was a lady who was on a long-running show in the 70s and 80s, who I met up in Boston through kind of a fluke. She was living in Boston, and she kind of took me on as a mentee, as it were, because it was my senior year in college, and I was having my continued existential crisis, of course, about not being a doctor and going into something that was completely, in my own, rational brain, idiotic. And so what happened is, I kind of told her that at some point, I don't know anything about this industry. I'm not one of those people that's like naturally, supermodel-y or anything like that. Like, okay. And she said, effectively, shut up, go to New York. So, she came to see me in my senior year plays, and she sort of kept track of me and just kept being that person that was basically telling me that not in any kind of, major, non-supportive way, but that the fears weren't so irrational, and that it may not work out, but like, Lord, try please, because it could. you know, and for her, it did work out. So, and she ended up choosing a different thing and moving to Boston for a different career at, you know, a later point in her life. But she said, you know, why the heck not? So she was my first person probably to kind of support me in, you know, actually moving for a professional career into New York to do acting and not some other thing, stage management or, you know, behind the scenes. I think my major, I think just kind of life motivator have been my parents to some degree. My dad, again, the concept of taking care of other people has always been sort of in the back of my head. And it took me a long time to understand how acting and then producing eventually was taking care of people, that how they were the same thing. And it took me a long time to understand that sort of the best actors are ones that make other people feel like they're not alone in the world.
Yeah.
That can bring a truth and an honesty to a character, whether it's comedy or theater or TV or drama or whatever, and make somebody else think for a hot second, oh, that's kind of like me. And I understand that experience, and that's something that I share. And so I think at its core, just good performance and good acting and being vulnerable enough and courageous enough to take on characters that aren't necessarily your own story, and try to give meaning and life to them for the sake of other people is I think where I found sort of purpose in it at the beginning and still do. And then as moving into my kind of second portion of what I do in producing and kind of being an entrepreneur as such, I think I've been learning a lot from a lot of different places. I love reading nonfiction. I think one of the first books that I read that I loved in this regard was The Alchemist, I think it was called. And it's a story about a man on a journey, and it's one of the best. And it really, you can't beat, you know, hugely recommend, really can't tell you much about it without sort of, you know, giving the whole thing away. But the idea of somebody finding their universal path and stepping in line with the mojo, as it were, and and doing and surrendering to some degree to what you were meant to do rather than what you think you should be doing. And I think that nugget right there has been the thing that I can most confidently say is the thing I hate the most about life, but also the thing that drives so much of what I do even today. And I constantly am struggling to get over myself and to get over the concept of what should is and why should has to dictate more than, you know, the amount that it can dictate, which is a little bit, you know, make the money, you know, feed yourself, have savings, be responsible, all the adulting things to be continued on that. But but not letting it dictate, you know, your life's purpose or you know, what you spend your time doing. Unless it is the thing that is for you.
Some people just kind of fall into certain things, and then there are others. That's a good point. we talk about not shooting yourself, but at the same time, what you ought to do, or should do, can become a driver for getting it done. And you'll learn more of this in the entrepreneurial world. We say don't should yourself, just go do it. I have a friend that has a tattoo, JFDI, on his shoulder. He is known as the contractor of small businesses because he's been involved in a lot of startups and stuff like that. And it's funny, the first time I met him, I looked at his shoulder and I was like, you know, for a guy who's so integrated into the business world, seeing tattoos on you is kind of odd. He goes, yeah, well, it is what it is. And I said, I get that. I'm not saying that that's a bad thing. It's just, it's unusual to see. Not anymore. But I looked at his shoulder and I said, but that interests me. What is that? And he says, what? I said, the JFDI. He says, oh, just fucking do it. And he said it so matter-of-factly and just like It's a part of his mantra. It's like, maybe we should, no, not maybe we should, just go do it. And it's one of those, like, it's going to break the fear of should I or shouldn't I? It's like, why are you asking? If the thought came, there's something behind it. Go do.
Yeah.
And obviously you've been doing it. Otherwise, we wouldn't be seeing what's behind you right now. And we'll be talking about that. We'll be talking about that here in a bit.
I love everything about that. I use a similar metaphor in my own world. I remember back in acting class in my sophomore year, which is around the time I was deciding to shift. We did an exercise where people were supposed to watch you walk at your normal, whatever that is, and tell you what you're leading with. So are you leading with your forehead? Because maybe, maybe the indicator is if you lead with your forehead that you're more of an intellectual and you're curious and you're looking, or are you leading with your chest, which is maybe more of attracting confidence? Are you leading with your gut? Maybe that's, one thing, and your nose or your whatever.
Yeah.
And I think people kind of got the same things over and over again. They're leading with their, their hips, or they're leading with their chest, or they're leading with their head, or they're leading with their chin, or, and I was sort of the oddball in the class, and people couldn't figure out what I was leading with. And then somebody thought to themselves, oh, I know what she's leading with. She's leading with her feet. And I found that really interesting because I went, I do that. I was like, oh crap.
What's that look like?
What is that? But I've since kind of internalized it and understood, for me, that's the way that I can do things on a metaphorical level. Whether what I was doing that day, who knows? But on a metaphorical level, if you lead with your feet, then your brain doesn't have time to interrupt you. And by the time your brain is caught up, you are already at that place.
Yeah.
And I think that has become my sort of entrepreneurial acting, whatever mantra of just move, just go. Don't think about it.
Yeah.
Let it go the way it's going to go, and everything else will catch up.
Yeah.
And that's for better or for worse, sort of how I live my life. And I guess maybe did by, default, by accident as a sophomore in college, but the concept of just do the thing, and then you'll figure out a way to catch up with it, as long as you're not, entirely irresponsible, and you've done your basic level of research, and you're not, walking into the fire pit.
Yeah, it's not jumping off the cliff without looking at how far down it is.
Like, you do your due diligence and then go.
Yeah. At least have a parachute or a pair of wings so you can glide. Something. Yeah. Exactly. It's funny because you have all those sayings like, jump over the edge and you'll grow wings. We're human. We don't have wings. It doesn't work like that. You need to at least look over the edge and see how far down it is. Can I get down with a rope, or do I actually need to have a parachute? Is this a short climb, or is this base jumping? Let's figure that part out before we jump over the edge.
Right. Is this a manageable level of risk for what I can tolerate, whatever that is? Yep. And if the answer is yes or less than yes, so it sure it is. Why wouldn't it be?
Right.
Go.
Let the feet move. Yeah.
Yeah. People get caught up in the minutia of that. And I think one thing that being an actor has given me is sort of a very well-honed instinct about things. And if it feels right, it feels right, and I'll just go with it, and I'll try to be, again, judicious about it. And if it's high risk in money, or high risk in, reputation, high risk in time, high risk in emotional quotient, whatever those things are, I'll go through it. But at the end of the day, more likely to do it than not. And if it doesn't work, okay, next thing.
So you've obviously moved into entrepreneurship. What made you do that?
So I think my biggest inspiration there really was I produced a show about 6 or 7 years ago that was a little bit ahead of its time. It was called That Reminds Me, and it was a sitcom that was a short form. So like each episode was 6-7 minutes, and it ended up living online because it was sort of the beginning of the web series sort of phase.
Cool.
And I really loved doing it. I had a hell of a time in terms of the business aspect of it, and just because I didn't go into it thinking I was starting a business. I went into it thinking I was creating a series with some friends. So I didn't do all the things I needed to do in terms of, protecting myself and making wise business decisions. I kind of went with the artistic flow of things. It worked out because, I followed my feet and I caught up and we did it.
Good.
And then at the end of the day, after, kind of doing everything to the best I could, and, the team to the best we could, I realized that I was looking at it wrong. I really, if I was going to be producing an indie series, excuse me, and not trying to pitch to network, which would have been the other kind of path there, that it was a startup and it wasn't just a fly by the seat of your pants kind of situation. And I didn't know that going in. So the very next thing I did when I realized that I might want to do this again, because it was successful, it just wasn't organized, and it cost me a lot of agita because I wasn't mentally prepared to do what was required, even though I did it anyway. Is I applied to the Harvard Business Program. So the very next thing I did was, you know what, I am going to figure out how to do this, the startup way, the financial way, the responsible, legal, monetary, the whole bit, so that I can make informed decisions the next time around. And so, that's really what sparked it, is that I had done it by accident. And then I went, let me do this on purpose. So I went and I co-founded a company with 4 of my co-producing friends to do sort of general filmmaking and, helping other people with their projects for hire things, just so I could get my feet wet and sort of figure out what team I wanted to work with, who, how the landscape worked. And we did a lot of good business with that company. And then one of our partners moved to Houston. And one of the other ones wasn't really interested in doing it anymore. And so I went, okay, maybe it's time for me to do this for myself. So I started a business for myself, brought on the other 2 partners as part of the operation, and then started looking to do something that wasn't gonna just sit on the internet and wither away. And that's not what happened to my first series. My first series did great. It got picked up by Amazon Prime. It did great. But we didn't do anything to really get it out there other than create good content and like smile and tell our families. So some people got to see it that weren't in our circles, but that we didn't get that far because we weren't designed for marketing. We weren't designed for, press. We were just a cute show. And so this time I wanted to make sure that it was both a monetary model and just a business model that was going to work and that was going to get eyeballs and that was going to be helpful to people and seen by people and do something interesting in the space that isn't just another television show that could just as easily be on Netflix.
Right. Cool. And in the midst of all of that, I'm sure you've learned a ton.
Oh yes.
Yeah, because no matter what college you go to, all the stuff that they don't teach you. The cool part about that story, in my mind, is the mere fact that, again, you went with your feet, and the rest of you did catch up. You obviously have that company now. Does that relate to what's behind you there, adulting?
Yeah, so the company is called Intent Entertainment, which is
Entertainment. Nice.
Intent
Okay.
Entertainment. So the goal of the company is to create out of the box experiential content.
Cool. We're gonna take a quick break and come back and dig into that. So because I really want to hear the I want the full section on it. So we're going to take a short 30-second break. You guys will be right back. And we're back here at Java Chat, hanging out with Jenny Paul, talking a bit about new ventures. I don't know how new, but it's, as far as from today forward, she has a company called Intent Entertainment. How'd you come up with the name?
Mostly I felt like what was missing for me from a lot of different projects was actually the intention. So the the concept of bringing something to existence
Mhm.
without a strong intention is something it's happening all over the indie world, where people are just trying to get content out there because they need to promote the thing or do the marketing or do the thing or get a career or get an agent or get a manager. In my world,
Welcome to TikTok and YouTube. My God.
so
Just
so
saying.
everything is about that, and that is fine. But I think without the intention behind it of what are you trying to do for people, not I'm trying to tell a joke. If I'm a comedian, I'm not trying to make myself feel better. I'm trying to make you laugh.
Right.
And there is an element of making myself feel better because it's just inherent to that type of performance, but that's not the point. The point is to be of service to other people. And I think that's where it comes from is that I wanted to make sure that any project that I was taking on or that I was involved with this particular company and for myself in general, was with the intention of helping people in some way, rather than just producing things that, churning content that was just content to be churned.
That's a marketing agency's job. That's not a job. So when we're looking at, again, we're looking at what's behind you there. Is that one of the projects from Intent? Okay.
So this is our first big, we've had a couple of clients that aren't us.
Yeah.
And really, really cool ones. In fact, we got to do this big gala for a not-for-profit where we got to do these great videos.
It was actually fun. I actually like doing those kinds of events.
It was amazing. It was for kids, and it was for the gala was honoring Frank Oz, and so we got to do all this cool, all this thing.
Frank Stephan, guys, that was good for kids. Boy, good.
Oh, so cool. But so we have plenty of, outside contract work, but this is our first big in-house, what I like to call a big beta test. So it's actually a series.
Okay.
Not too dissimilar from the one that I produced a handful of years ago. It's about a girl, Jane, who is adulting for the first time, and she is hitting up against all of the stupid things that you hit up against, break out into the world. And what is particularly unique about this is there are two things. First is it's a how-to video narrated series hybrid.
Nice.
So it feels like a sitcom, but it's actually an educational, like Sesame Street for adults, maybe.
Nice.
And the second thing that I am actually really excited about because of what it is so we're actually, because the sort of the mission of the company is to reach outside the box to get people involved, to get people feeling part of the community, to get people learning things. We're actually using this sort of shoppable capability that's
cool.
kind of becoming a new thing. It's been in Asia for a couple of years, and we've actually been on the air since a little bit before COVID. So it's not super new, but it's super up and coming. So basically what this means is if you're watching something, and I think the idea behind it is probably like, oh, I like Jenny's shirt. Let me click it and I'm going to go buy that shirt.
Oh, cool.
Video. So that's the concept of the shoppability factor. So what we're using it for, and we'll probably let people buy Jane's shirt at some point. But what we're using it for is to complete the circle of the educational factor. So we've got Jane, she has her issue. Maybe she loses a button off of her shirt at a Starbucks, and she's going to go run to H&M and buy another shirt because that's what millennials do. Instead of sewing the button back on, because she doesn't really know how to sew a button, but she kind of knows, but she doesn't really know.
Yeah.
So enter expert sewer or expert person, Tim Gunn, enter Tim. Tim Gunn says, "Stop, Jane. Let's make this work." Right? Of course, that's what he would say.
Yeah.
And then he teaches her how to sew a button in the episode in a reasonably quick amount of time. Sort of demystifies it. Also teaches her that it doesn't have to be perfect to just get it done and move on with your day.
Make it work.
And then he disappears, and Jane knows how to sew a button now. So so the thing that we're making shoppable is the sewing kit. The thing that you actually need to do the thing that you're learning how to do.
That's Actually, that's brilliant.
Thanks.
That's really no, that's really brilliant. I've heard the concept, never fully explained like this, but so is this going to mean like, is it going to be clickable or something, or is it
It
going
is
to be?
clickable. It
It
has
is
been
clickable.
since
Even
yeah.
better.
So we're working, we're kind of working closely with the makers of, in partnership with the makers of the tech. So it's kind of evolving as we are.
Huh.
It does work. It is awesome. It's worked since,
That's it. That's
before
now
COVID.
I'm interested, and I'm going to want to go at least look and see. Well, no, seriously, because it is. I can see where you're saying it's up and coming.
Mhm.
Japan's always ahead of us in that kind of stuff anyway. And I did hear of this before. Years ago, there was a company called Clickable that could turn your videos into an actual, well, you could do that. You could put different, but it was static. It was a box here. You put some text in it. If somebody clicks on it.
Yep. So that's always been,
as you're going, you can just touch it and it'll pop up whatever on the side. You can buy it while still watching. There, again.
yep.
This is news. This is cool. This is really amazing.
They're still, there's still a small tech, and they're still working out the kinks. So, if you play with this on a desktop, you will experience the whole thing. Everything will be great. It'll work. It'll be big enough to click. Mobile, it's coming. It's coming. We're getting there.
Mobile's a different game. I understand that one too. It's a
It's there, but it's not at that full maximum experiential that you want it to be just yet, but it's there, and it's come a super long way from a year ago when we started doing all of
When Adulting with Jane becomes an app, it'll be completely workable, I guarantee
it. I'll love that, because what that'll mean is that people can, dig around and do what they need to do, but it can also mean that, you can have the videos play at full mobile screen. Right now we're at about, 3/4 mobile screen, but when you're looking at clicking something with your finger, it has to be like,
it has to be full screen. You got to have the room. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Especially when you got fat fingers like I do. It's like I'll touch one thing and 5 things will pop up. So it is
exactly. So it's there. It's probably, I would say, safely 80% to speed. But I think the biggest thing is that it gives our partners that work with us, the sewing kit, whoever that might be, and whatever, a chance to actually be featured in a way that they can't anywhere else. So, we've designed it sort of marketing style, which you know tons about. We've designed the episodes so that the brand or the product gets, 5 to 7 impressions in the episode, because it's part of it's a hero in the story.
Yep.
So because of that, people leave the show or the episode knowing how to do the thing, what one of the best tools is, because we vet them very hard, to make sure that they're not just quality, but also affordable. And then they know what the problem is, how to solve it, and what to solve it with, if there is something to solve it with. And they leave, for the brands, and they leave with a really positive brand recognition. And
hopefully fails.
And they fully know what it is because they've seen it 7 times. So they know what this thing is, and they know who makes it, what it is, and what that option is, and maybe they even click to their website.
Cool.
So it's this thing of trying to bridge the gap in how we're doing it, but also just making it so that, small businesses and medium-sized businesses, which are very much our target partners, are being able to be seen offline from an Amazon or whatever else. And they're also, they're getting that brand recognition, and they're getting that attention from the people, we're trying really hard to match with people that are our demo, which is mostly, I'd say mostly female, millennial, Gen Z, a little bit, it's probably 65, 35. No.
You'll have to do an Adulting with Jake eventually, because
exactly.
the men need this just as much as the women do. Trust me.
Yeah, I was thinking maybe we'll go Adulting with Dick. I don't know how we'll get there, but
Oh, I want to know when that one comes out. I definitely want to know when that one comes
I feel like the guys would actually watch that.
I know the guys would watch that, because they would harp on everything about it. I guarantee, and get viewership like that.
If you find a showrunner that has that sense of humor, I'm a little too wholesome for Adulting with Dick, but I'll happily like oversee the show.
We may have to have a conversation anyway. Beyond that, What other things are you working on? I mean, are you still working in comedy? Are you doing anything new coming up yourself?
Yeah, I mean, so it's been a rough year all across for all the productions.
Everybody,
Adult
yeah.
Game is one of the only productions that stayed live this year because our crew is just that small.
Yeah.
We were able to, we were able to have 7 people in a room and the other half of the crew on Zoom, because we're tiny, and that's just, it was what it was, exactly. So that, and always auditioning for things and in the mix for other things. I'm in the mix for a play and
good
downtown Manhattan. And I did get my second vaccine a few days ago, so I can actually do said play without worrying too much about of COVID stuff. So it's been a really weird and interesting and in some ways terrible year for actors because there's nothing going on. Broadway shut down.
Yeah, I know.
So
closed. That's such a heartbreaker. Let me tell you. Yeah. I mean,
where there used to be 800 submissions for one job, there's thousands now because nobody's working. So it's that thing of lucky to have the jobs when I get them, and that's the life outside of outside of the stuff that I produce for myself. It's just waiting for my agent to call, meeting people, doing all the things you need to do to kind of keep up. And so it's been good though.
That's good. Yeah, and this whole congratulations. Obviously the success is starting to show. Hopefully it'll keep rolling in that direction. Where can people find this, Adulting with Jane?
Adultingwithjane.com is where the whole interactivity element lives. It also is on Amazon. But you keep, Amazon is Amazon, so you can't do anything special there. So I always send
just go to adultingwithjane.com.
Yeah. I say we're on Amazon because that's a cool thing. But also, if you want to go play with the fun stuff, it's on the list.
People like fun. Just it's better to go over to a website. And people can find you online. They can find you on where? Facebook, YouTube?
So Adulting with Jane. TikTok is our biggest place. At Adulting Jane, Instagram, Facebook. We have a couple of groups that are fun, and also a page, Adulting with Jane. Find all that. I think we're also on YouTube, but we're not really doing much on YouTube. Just the trailer lives there, but maybe we will eventually.
Yeah.
We're doing all these. We're vetting all these products. At some point, we'll turn them into unboxing videos or something.
There you go. That's where it's at. It's still where it's at on YouTube.
And then I'm JennyPaul.net.
JennyPaul.net. All right, you guys. Well, as you guys all know, we always put all the links down below.
That's a lie. I am JennyPaul.info. That's correct. A huge lie.
It's a huge correction. Info, not net.
Info.
So JennyPaul.info. All the links will be down below in the comments, you guys. If you have any questions or you guys have anything you want to ask Jenny, ask them down in the comments. She'll have the links to both the video and the podcast. So if you're listening on podcast, you can ask there too. Or better yet, just go to JennyPaul.info and go ask her there. It's probably smarter. But at the same time, we're happy that you guys stayed here and hung out with us, watched, listened. I hope you guys got a ton of value. I know I learned some more stuff today too. A huge thank you, Jenny, for coming and hanging out with us on Java Chat. We really appreciate your presence, your insight, your expertise, your passion. That was the fun right there.
Thank you so much. This was so great.
Yeah, I had a blast. Guys, if you're watching on YouTube, don't forget, if you haven't subscribed, make sure you hit the subscribe button and the bell right next to it. That tells you when we get another killer guest like this on. If you're listening to on any of the podcast platforms, boy, my tongue is just going out the window today. On any of the podcast platforms, there's like 13 of them. Make sure you download or subscribe there. You can listen to us on Spotify. We're definitely on Spotify. If you're listening to us on anchor.fm, make sure you drop a note. If you feel like giving us some support, we could use it. We're just a little guy, but I think we're now over 100 interviews now. And we're booked out till June. I'm still not sure how that happened, but whatever. So come back. There's more. Come back. We love that you made the time and take the time to come and listen to us. We really appreciate it because it's like we know everybody's busy and everybody's got stuff to do. When you come and take a moment to listen to us, sharing these insights, sharing these passions, hopefully you're getting a ton of gold out of it. Make sure that you share this with somebody. If you heard anything in this that made sense, resonated with you, my friend should hear this, go share it with them, please. Every bit counts, every bit helps. So, always on the same. Stay up, stay safe, stay healthy, and live. For Java Chat, I'm Coffee with Mike, Jenny Paul. Ciao for now.
For more information on Java Chat, visit www.javachatpodcast.com. You've been listening to Coffee with Mike on Java Chat. Tune in weekly to this podcast for the next episode. You can also download or subscribe today on your favorite podcast platform. A production of Oasis Media Group, LLC. Located in Las Vegas, Nevada. Copyright 2019. All rights reserved.